Good afternoon and welcome to Pembroke College. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us today for the second Oxfordshire Voice Forum. I'm Richard Rosser of B4. Many of you we've met before, but to those that I've not met, good evening and welcome. This is my colleague Simon Howson-Green. So Simon, ironically, was the first editor of B4 magazine 10 years ago.
110 years.
And he lasted one issue before we fell out. So, but we rekindled our romance, and he's back here to help us with Oxfordshire Voice. So, Simon will give you a little bit of background about what Simon's doing for us.
Right, first of all, I need to just turn this on.
Technology wizard.
Yeah, sorry about that.
You can probably shout Simon over your ear.
Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. If somebody from the technical side can work out how to switch this on when we can, that'd be great help a bit later on. So, what we're doing, some of you, how many of you came to the Oxfordshire Voice Forum last month? So a few. Now when we did that, the way we explained at the time was experimental, and we were very much keen to is it working?
Yeah.
Okay. We were keen to feel our way through to find the best way to make these forums as efficient as possible. And you may remember we had some experts on the panel. One of them is here somewhere, Tony is here somewhere. What we realised by doing that was it actually meant that we spent a lot of time talking to the experts when there were a lot of people on the floor who really wanted to make a lot more contributions. So what we're going to do this time, because you're all experts, is we're going to take it from me just comparing it, and we're just going to get a discussion going amongst all of us. And of course, clearly, with Oxfordshire Voice, one of the main reasons we're doing this is on this particular this event, which is to do with employment and staffing in the region. At the end of it, just so you understand the format, after we've gone through the questions from the survey, which is the way we kickstart the whole process, we'll then open it to the floor, we get a discussion going. I think we'll then take a break, Richard, before we come back.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I know a lot of people do have to get away for 6ish, so if we can get through all the slides and all the discussion by 6, we'll call it a day there. But there's no point in elongating it unnecessarily.
Now, one really important aspect of what we do here is we will make sure that from all the discussions that take place and the outcomes that we hope to develop, we can produce some kind of news story, some kind of a media story from the back of that. And that we will put out to the media. We are building up this as collateral. It's one of the most important points about Oxfordshire Voice, apart from the fact that we want, when we kickstart and launch properly in the new year, we want to start changing the way we work and the way we operate in Oxford and Oxfordshire. We also want to make sure that Oxfordshire Voice does actually make a noise, and it is actually speaking for, it could potentially be speaking for 30,000 businesses in the region. And we want to be able to draw more and more people in, and we do need to have people talking, and we want to be able to get those opinions out there, and we want to be able to use what happens at these events to make sure we can get the message out there to the media and to a wider world. So I think the first thing to do, should we go through the questionnaire to start with?
Well, yeah, I just want to give a bit more background for those that do need a little bit more background about Oxfordshire Voice. So just a quick thank you to all the partners. So this has been a year in the making, really, and this is the second, as Simon alluded to earlier, we had a forum at Unipart a few weeks ago. So this is the second trial forum. There'll be 12 next year. 9 or 10 of them are actually noted in the brochure that you've got on your seats. But we've been talking to the companies whose logos are on the screen here for the past 12 to 14 months, really, about Oxfordshire Voice and how it can work. So thank you to businesses who are supporting us, and these guys are committed to us for the next 3 years. It's not an overnight collaboration. It's a long-term collaboration, because some of the issues that we're looking at they're not going to be overcome overnight. So initial steps. This is our second forum. There are no rules. The format might need tweaking. We welcome your constructive feedback, whether that's tonight or it's in the survey that we'll send you afterwards. It's all about collaboration, and we need some very positive energy and some realistic targets. I appreciate there's plenty that we could knock about, and organisations or individuals or whatever you want to do, but this is all about positive energy and realistic targets. This is a forum for ideas and vision. Please speak up and don't hold back. I had a number of emails after the last forum people saying that they were surprised this wasn't mentioned or that wasn't mentioned. And now's your opportunity. Yes, of course you can feedback in the surveys afterwards, but please, if you've got something to say and it's going to help us come up with these outcomes, then please do so. We have an idea how it will go today, but we might get taken off track, so we'll go with the flow. You'll be given an opportunity to contribute and make some positive suggestions or positive suggestions. We're interested in ideas and solutions. We want you to be today understanding this is one of the first steps of a long-term project. It's not a one-off, and as I said before, it won't work overnight. So if you have a look at page 11 of your brochure, we've got an introduction to how Oxfordshire Voice will actually work. And this is the format we've come up with. It might, as I say, it might get tweaked over the course of the next few months, but this is essentially what we're going for. Now, there are elements that have changed already. So we have an executive board which is comprising 12 of the Oxfordshire Voice partners that we saw logos of earlier, and they oversee the strategy of Oxfordshire Voice, and we met for the second time last week. There will also be an OV think tank which is meeting in early December, and that will set the agenda going forward for these monthly forums. Prior to the 12 monthly forums, we'll be sending out surveys to the Oxfordshire Voice partners in the B4 community that will help to shape the agenda of the monthly forums. And then each forum, we're targeting 4 outcomes. We actually had more than 4 at the last forum, which we'll go through with you in a second. And in your brochure, you've got short, medium, long-term, and the blue sky thinking target. It's difficult to draw the lines between those, so we've decided just to focus on 4 targets. The outcomes of the forums, the surveys, and also an opportunity for the local authorities to promote what they're doing in terms of the issues in hand and help get a bit more publicity for the initiatives that they're undertaking, because I think that's one of the messages we're getting back from the local authorities. Getting their message out is very difficult. So we will use the quarterly blue paper that will be sent out with the survey results and the forum outcomes together with those initiatives undertaken by the local authorities. That will be included in B4 magazine, sent to the Oxfordshire Voice partners and sent to the local authorities. Now, in terms of how those potentially 48 outcomes materialise into policy, I think managing expectations, we'd be delighted if in the next 12 months, 1 got through into policy. I think that would constitute success. We're not saying everything, all 48 are going to be up in lights in the next 12 months and in local policy. So, but we hope that by the local authorities providing us with some more background, the outcomes that we come to at the forums will be a lot more informed. So, Forum 1 outcomes, just a quick overview. Introduce a planning condition for, to give you set the scene. This was on the impact of digital technology on business in Oxfordshire, and it very much geared towards connectivity and telecoms, etc. So, introduce a planning condition for any road being dug up, a tube for fibre must be laid. That was a pretty even split there. Establish an expert group to identify a chronological checklist to improve connectivity. We need to be educated first, lest we propose poor ideas. So these were outcomes suggested during the forum, and then they were voted on actually live in the forum, and you'll have the opportunity to do the same this evening. Collect symptoms. What are the key issues we need to pull together and move forward with? We must gather data. So that was fairly unanimous. Identify the gaps in Oxfordshire, perhaps with an interactive digital map. This will provide evidence to central government, so 3/4 to 25% weighting. We need to look at other basic areas such as smart traffic lights, driverless cars, and more. Easier wins that are just as important as connectivity. I'm not sure what 26 and 24 means there, because we've got 50 people abstained on that one by the looks of things, so I don't think those numbers are right. Even more fundamental education of just what digital is. Use government framework audit idea to understand the level of comprehension among SME business owners, pretty unanimous. Expert seminars from digital providers and existing smart cities to educate Oxfordshire businesses about what connectivity really entails. Now, Simon referenced Tony that's in the audience at the back there, and one of the outcomes that came, so if you put your hand up there, Tony, so one of the outcomes is that there's going to be actually a digital conference at the end of January. Is that what we agreed, 29th, 30th?
Yeah, 29th of January at Unipark. So Frank and Relics will provide the venue, and we need to work out what the agenda is going to be still, but the whole idea is to address that whole connectivity issue.
So that's a positive outcome from that particular forum to sort of really focus and drill down onto the issues that Tony raised at the last forum. Thank you, Tony. And then finally, explore which national agencies are available to assist us with key issues. So I'm sure we'll be trying to get some of those along to the connectivity conference, and that was 69-31%. So just to give you an idea, so they're the sorts of outcomes that we came up with last time. So, Simon, do you want to go through the survey results that we sent out the survey? A number of you will obviously have contributed to the survey, so we'll go through the questions that were sent out and the responses and some of the actual comments that were made.
Just before we do it, just one quick question. Everybody here, how many people here didn't fill out the survey? It might be very interesting in the feedback afterwards to just ask if the way we're putting the survey together works for you, or is it looks too time consuming. It was only 9 questions, and these surveys are incredibly important. So it'll be interesting to see what your feedback was of those who didn't fill out the survey. You need to fill out another survey to tell us why you didn't fill out the first survey. So we'll go through the questions, and once we've done that, we'll kick off a discussion amongst all of us. So the first question is, do you struggle to find the right people to fill key roles in your company, and which answer most closely matches your situation? Not really. We attract the right people. Sometimes and often we have to compromise. Frequently it's the area, not the company, and far too often it's a real issue. So which one fits the most, and can we reveal the legend? I think that tells a fairly good story. It does. And I think that the theme, as we reveal more of the answers, is that there are a number of issues with recruiting. I don't want to preempt it too much, but there are recruitment issues in this area, and they fall into 2 categories. One is finding the people, and the other one is retaining them. But we'll expand on that a bit more as we go to the next question.
Well, we've got the comments that went along with that question as well, so
yeah.
if you want to whip through.
Do you want me to read through all of them?
No, you don't have to. No.
Okay.
Why don't you do one and I'll do one?
All right, you pick your favourite and I'll pick my favourite.
Well, we struggle to recruit lawyers at 1 to 5 years PQE, if I said that right, I hope, typically in their first 10 years after graduation.
Okay, so one of them, which was a recurring theme among some of the answers, was we really struggle to find trained, competent, mature electricians, fire and security engineers to work in occupied premises, and that's the thing we'll come back to in terms of that level of workforce and attracting them to the area.
And that final one really stood out to me. We've been advertising 3 roles for 9 months that have not even had applicants via agencies, online portals or our own channels. Roles I could fill in 10 days for 40k in London do not attract applicants even at 50k plus. It has significantly held back growth of the company, and as such we are opening offices elsewhere. Okay?
Yeah. And everybody's had a chance to scan their eyes through the other responses. Okay. So the second question is, do you use outside agencies to recruit your senior staff? Never. We rely on our own networking and advertising, straight websites. Not if we can help it, but we have used recruitment agencies. Some roles, yes, but it's the best way to cast our net, and often you cannot recruit top people without agencies. It's interesting that 9.09 is the same figure for the other one at the top. So that does tend to suggest that people are, for many roles, needing to go to outside agencies to get some kind of help at some level. So we go to the comments. Do you want to go first, Richard?
We have our own resourcing team, but do use agencies when necessary.
We have used, I think that's supposed to say, 3 local agencies who failed to provide suitable candidates, as well as national, read, and sector-specific, and there's the list of the sector-specific. Local agencies have failed to understand our needs. Maybe read one more. We're not a big fan of agencies. Are there any agencies here tonight? Oh yeah.
So this isn't a witch hunt at you guys, honestly. We're glad that you're here, so we can get your
all the
feedback.
agencies over that side. We're not a big fan of agencies. We have had cases where they've placed someone, then contacted them a year later to see if they're ready for their next challenge. Just a quick question, just to any of the agencies. Of the people agencies here, do you tend to also try and use LinkedIn to recruit?
Yeah, we've actually found recently social media has been a massive pull for candidates, whether it's headhunting or actually doing our adverts. So we, out of our normal adverts that we put on our own website, we don't really get much hits anymore, but through social media we get a lot, so whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Right,
we'll try and cover that a bit later as well, because that is a sea change, that's a game changer for many people. Whether it's an advantage or not, we can discuss, but that has been a game changer in the last few years. If we move on to the next one. Do you use outside agencies to recruit your less senior staff? Never. They are unnecessary.
Sorry, I jumped the gun there, but...
That's right, well, there you go. You can see never they're unnecessary to use our own resources, website. They're a waste of money. You guys are... they're a waste of money.
You said these questions, Simon, so...
I don't know who wrote them. I'm really...
The options even.
Not that we can help it, but we have used recruitment agencies. Some roles, yes, it's the best way to cast a net, etc., etc. I mean, the numbers are sort of very similarly reflected in the numbers for the senior staff as well, the more qualified staff. So some of the responses, again, I'll read that one. We have had to for fire and security engineers, but our experience is that we are far more successful in terms of employment longevity with staff we have trained ourselves and who already know someone who works in the company. And that is going to lead on to hopefully a discussion about retaining staff, which is a huge issue in this region. Go on then, Richard, your turn.
Well, I'm loath to read the next one because I'm sure it's not true, but as above, the quality is the big issue. Agencies are more interested in quick placement than matching candidates, which from the agencies that we know, certainly not your modus operandi, is it, Glenn?
No, myself, no.
So, moving on.
Do you think other cities are more attractive to workers than Oxford? Sadly, yes, especially London. We need to lure the best away from the draw of the capital. It's a worry and a mystery. What's not to like about Oxford and Oxfordshire? Oxford is like Marmite. I didn't write that. Oxford is like Marmite. It appeals to some and others hate it. No, people who love Oxford are the kind of people we want to employ. Well, I think that says a lot if you look at the first answer there. Most people here agree that there is an issue with attracting people and keeping them in Oxfordshire. And we'll discuss some of the reasons. Some of the reasons, of course, will spill into some of the other areas we're looking at in terms of transportation, housing infrastructure, and some of the other areas we're just dealing with at Oxfordshire Voice. So it all does neatly tie together. Some of the comments. I'll do this one. Oxford is a very expensive city. Somebody told me it's the most expensive city in Europe to live now.
Certainly in the UK.
Yeah, that makes more sense. Oxford is a very expensive city for people wanting to live here and work in the voluntary sector. And I think that possibly applied to many people in the lower paid sector as well. We aim to pay competitive salaries because of this reality and because we value the people we recruit highly. But of course we are limited by fundraising and by needing to remain sustainable.
I think another one at the end there, especially with reference to tech, is we struggle to draw people here with London so close, particularly given the cost of living and the perceived isolation. As a tech firm, Oxford is not exciting to candidates, however much we love it.
Just a quick question, I'll come to it in a bit, but Paddy, as a guy who runs a law firm, I mean, me as an outsider, I would assume in many ways that you want to try and get some decent people who actually even studied at Oxford. Is that an easy thing to do?
Well, it isn't just people who've studied at Oxford. We want the right people, and that doesn't necessarily align, but in seeking the right people, it is very difficult to attract talent from other large cities, whether it's the city and London, or whether it's regional centres like Birmingham, Liverpool, Manchester. Primarily the cost of living. That relocation is a big move for some people. Some people live in Oxford. We've got a big commuter population who head up on Parkway, Didcot, up to town, and they will pay the extra travel cost to earn higher wages in London. That translates to wage inflation here. And also the buzz, I guess, of London. So for earlier in the answers, you had some comments about the difficulty in attracting 1 to 5 year PQE. That wasn't my answer, but that's a common answer.
Right.
Because newly qualified professionals, and it may translate into accountancy and into tech and IT as well, those professionals, so graduates usually, mid-late 20s, can they afford to live here? Rented sector's quite expensive, buying your first home is very expensive. These are the core challenges that make recruitment really difficult.
So just to go back to one of the questions there, just as a show of hands, how many people here do see Oxford and Oxfordshire as a Marmite centre? You either love it or you hate it.
In the eyes of the candidates?
In the eyes of people who want to live and work here, is it a Marmite? Is it a place you either love or you hate? Who would say yes?
Yeah, I think so. I think it is. We recruit candidates in from around the country. You know, there's a perception, right, really not. This is a university surrounded by a town,
Right.
as opposed to it's a city with happens to have a university there. So the reason for being here, the social side of it, is just full of students.
You sort of asked, you're out on the limb with that opinion, but it's quite interesting. By the way, do you like Marmite?
No. I like Oxford. Don't live in it. I like Oxford.
Is it also the demographic of who you're trying to attract? So if you're looking at those perhaps, I don't know, roughly under 35s, what's exciting about Oxford?
Have we read this comment?
Yeah, no, I just went back over them just in case anybody had a chance. So next question?
Yes. Do you find it hard to hold on to your best people? Yes, it's very frustrating. We train them up and then off they go. Just a show of hands, do people recognise that statement? There's a few people nodding, okay. It's an issue, we need to do more. Sorry?
Forceful. You need to be more forceful
Who?
in your instructions. Show of hands.
Show your hands!
Still, no. Too hard.
It's an issue, we need to do more. Is this working?
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
We need to do more to make the workforce fall in love with Oxford and Oxfordshire. The jury's out. Some will always stay here, others want to move on, even if they love us and the region. And no, we hold on to the best, and the region offers such a great life environment. And I mean, they're quite a disparate set of questions, but again, there's a very clear sway towards the third answer there, the jury's out. And that's, from an Oxfordshire Voice point of view, that is something we need to address. Well, with the jury's out, what does Oxfordshire Voice, as a group representing a large amount of businesses in the region, do to get the jury sitting down and give us a positive verdict? Some of the comments? Oh, that was a bit unenthusiastic, wasn't it? The staff turnover is very low. Does anybody recognise that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first two pretty much the same.
Okay. And we've already low turnover staff. Okay. We'll move on from those two, shall we?
Yeah, it's pretty weak.
Yeah. This is a question from Oxfordshire LEP, about attracting talent. As a county, we do enough to promote Oxfordshire as a great place to both work and live, to attract the most talented people. Which answer most closely matches? So, can you just read that again? As a county, we do enough to promote Oxfordshire as a great place to both work and live, to attract the most talented people. Which answer closely matches? Right, so strongly agree, neither agree, or disagree, or strongly disagree. Whoever wrote that answer's done a lot of surveys in their time.
Is everybody clear on what the question means?
No.
I want a second referendum, please.
So I think it's
I think we're basically saying, are we doing enough to attract people
Yes.
to Oxfordshire?
yeah. And the answers were, well, nobody thinks anybody is. Most people disagreed, and some people are ambivalent one way or the other, which also is not particularly good, encouraging answer to get. And were there any comments attached to that?
No.
Okay,
won't know.
is there one more?
There's one more question, yeah.
Okay, this is also from Oxford LEP. Where is the Oxford LEP person? Okay. Did you write that question?
I did, unfortunately. Yes.
Right, okay, well,
Oh, hang around to try then. You
we're
caught roll.
discussing your syntax later.
Yeah.
Right, so question from Oxford LEP about nurturing talent. As a county, we invest in building a sustainable workforce for the future, creating skills, pathways, and aligning skills to sector needs, which answer most closely matches. You've got a lot of explaining to do. Yeah. And then we can, I don't think any comments.
Strongly agree or disagree?
Was there any?
No, that was it.
Okay.
But if you change that to as a business we invest in, just to bring it down to the individual businesses and
Yeah.
representatives of organisations that are here, that's one of the things we have to work really hard on. Because your point of difference is you have really exciting clients doing really exciting things in a great city. That's the sell. The disbenefit is it's bloody expensive to live here. And or communication or links are not as joined up as they could be. It's a whole other discussion. But in terms of employment and employment challenges, the business propositions, and by aggregation you could say the county proposition is very exciting, but it's very hard to sell it, as evidenced by the earlier answers to the question.
So that's for the question. That's the question's done, isn't it?
Yeah, but now we've got the suggested outcomes
Yes.
on the survey. So
Okay.
it's quite a few. So ideas about making Oxford in particular attractive for professionals. Do you want to do an alternative?
Yes. Employers to develop, initiate, and deliver practical steps to recruit Oxfordshire residents who are in disadvantaged circumstances.
I'm not sure what. I presume that means address the cost of living in Oxford and Oxfordshire.
Agreement from private sector to pay at least the actual living wage as calculated by the Living Wage Foundation.
A strong commitment to building a more inclusive and diverse workforce.
Marketing strategy to attract employees. I mean, that marketing strategy could be on a governmental or level, and it could also be something that Oxfordshire Voice could be working with members on. More pubs, more publicity.
It's cheap, John.
More publicity about the opportunities in the region.
A central job board where employers and prospective employees could connect for free or at a lower rate.
Just a quick comment about that. Does that? I mentioned LinkedIn. How many people here see a real value in having a Oxford and Oxfordshire specific jobs board, which is easily accessible, a one-stop shop, so to speak, for people to see what's on what is available, what's on offer? Just as a show of hands.
So the recruitment agencies think that will be worthwhile.
Yeah, not to take myself out of business, but yeah.
Yeah. So what is your? You want to change career or?
Yeah, I mean, if you're offering a good wage.
Well, essentially, these job boards cherry pick the job offers from all the different agencies, and it becomes a one place. Yeah.
I think we got to why is Oxfordshire?
Yeah, why is
really
Oxfordshire really the place to live and work? Again, it's addressing the issue of attracting people to the region or holding them here. Find a way to attract and retain the best talent in the county, similar idea. Agree a plan to bring new talent to the area, that's bringing people inward. Commitment to exploring how to encourage more inclusive workforces across the country. County.
Essential agreed plan on promoting Oxford as a career destination.
Can we make Oxford an affordable place for employees to live?
A citywide jobs listing again.
And communications and awareness, just as Milton Keynes advertised to attract people, Oxfordshire needs to do something similar. So, let's throw this open now, and if you could just say your name and who you are as we start. And I really want to pick on Simon to start with, if that's all right. So
Can I just say before we're at 5:05 now, so we've wrestled through that.
Yeah.
Is everybody happy that we aim to focus at maybe 5:45, 6 o'clock finish? Is everybody happy with that? Yeah. I don't want to drag it out, so do you want to let Pembroke?
Okay, so Simon, just do you want to get the mic up to Simon? Just so, what I know about Simon, who apparently is now named Simon Gray, from the Careers Boutique, is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so what I know about you, Simon, is you spent a career in sailing and yachting, and you come from that kind of background. You've now gone into recruitment. Do you feel that you've jumped in at the deep end? Just give us your impression of what challenges you face and what kind of people you're recruiting and how those challenges go together.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
You've got 4 cameras on you, Simon, by the way.
so I say, my name's Simon with the Career Boutique, and I actually did spend a few years living in Monaco, the gentleman that mentioned earlier. And so I moved to Oxford and decided to join Catherine. And certainly the recruitment market does seem to pose some serious challenges in this area, particularly with the higher cost of living. But as I said to Richard quite recently, I think with the companies that we have in the area immediately, fantastic skills base, and they are obviously looking for greater skills to bring in. But I think it needs to be a high level of investment to showcase what we have in the immediate area. There is a lure towards Oxford, obviously, for that younger generation. I think that Oxford, I've lived here probably most of my life outside of living abroad. So I think it's a mature area that I think students are slowly wanting to more, certainly students that have gone to Oxford universities. I think we are starting to see more students stay in the area as opposed to move to some of the larger cities.
We stop you there. So this next question, is anybody in this audience who has been involved or has spent time recruiting in Oxford and Oxfordshire for more than a couple of decades? Has somebody been working here a long time and spent a long time recruiting? Paddy, let's go back to you.
The oldest person in the room or something.
So the question really is, can you just summarise what you would say are the changes in the last couple of decades or so?
Gosh. It was never a cheap place. It was always commutable to London. It's always had low, I mean, for many years, it's had very low unemployment. There's obviously been challenges in the less skilled market area, I guess, but you've got a car factory here, which is an amazing employer. You've also got some other industries that have moved in onto the business parks and recruited over the 30 years. The temptation of the city to go up to London as salaries in the city through the boom, they pulled a lot of people up to London. Younger people leave college, they go, so there's that area of the market. The more mature market, people with starting a family, wanting to not have, to come back to a work-life balance, that's been an attractive feature, to come out to the Cotswolds, West Oxfordshire, North Oxfordshire, the Vista villages and so on. That's where you try and hit your recruitment in the middle market. What you find is then you end up with very senior people, very well paid, and you're missing that lower area of recruitment, and it's in the more junior staff that you struggle.
So who here is heavily involved in recruiting less skilled workers or more junior staff? So, Joe, can I ask you to start with, what are the challenges you face? Have they always been the same, or are they specific to now?
I think younger people have a completely different perception of the world and what they want. I'm based in Whitney, and one of the challenges is to make it a vibrant and exciting place to live. And what we're seeing is putting up lots of houses, but not thinking about the community as a whole. And that's the challenge. We don't have a proper planning focus, and that's because we don't have local democracy.
Where's Bob?
He's just left.
Oh, he's just gone, is he? Who else would like
You saw the way it was going.
Yeah.
I'm Matt Peachy of the City Council. I'm not a candidate economic development manager. We've just published our draft local plan. 6 weeks consultation, proper democracy democracy.
Microphone.
Drop in sentence. Oh, sorry. Okay, yeah, we've just published our local plan, November the 1st, holding drop-ins all over the city, various stages of publication on that local plan. There's plenty of opportunities for democracy on that. It's gone through various stages in terms of our members signing that off. It won't be submitted to the inspector until March next year, but there's a 6-week period now in which people can make those kind of comments. So I'd urge you to do so.
So where was the exciting debate and controversy?
Yeah, I guess
Was
you
there
missed it. I guess you missed it. I mean,
Well, I must have.
I can't.
Who were the names? Who were the politicians who were challenging one another publicly?
Good question. I didn't see
Right, and that's the problem with local politics, because it's not engaging, and the people are not engaged.
Okay, well, I'd say the opportunity is there anyway. But I did
Is that something that we can help push out, Matt?
Yes, I'm sure you can. Yeah, we can share the link and the details.
So I think that highlights exactly the problem. I think that there isn't a natural, known communication channel between you guys and the business community.
Yeah, that's good.
That's because local politicians have no power. So it's not going to be engaging if people can't make decisions.
Does anybody else want to comment on that? So let's just move on slightly, and we will come back to it. Let's just move on slightly. How many people here who run businesses and they are recruiting simply always have they always have positions they cannot fill?
Simon, can we just go back, because I think Ben wanted. Did you want to make a comment on that previous question as well?
Yeah, I think it's it's almost a side thing where we've probably not seen as a solution, but I think a lot of our clients and as a recruitment agency find that they're struggling to recruit talent into probably the second, third job, simply because it is difficult to live here in terms of affording to do so. Where we've seen clients being particularly successful is retaining their staff, and by doing that, retaining them by giving that clear career path. A lot of our clients have adopted taking individuals with no experience for a role that requires some and giving them that accelerated career plan. So paying for qualifications, giving promotions into contracts, giving pay rises into the contracts. In my own recruitment agency, we write into our contracts, actually, you can have 3 promotions in 3 years, you can have 6 pay rises in 3 years. And we've seen that because we put that out across some of our clients, actually, the retention and candidates who may have fallen gone to London are staying in Oxfordshire.
Okay. Interesting.
So that sounded a bit like, to me, like the issue is not, it's, when you say affordability, we're really talking about people who aren't on a housing ladder, who are in assisted housing of some kind. We're not talking about people who are earning the bigger bucks. Oxford is very attractive to them. Is that what we're saying?
I think getting candidates out, I see the real gap as a recruitment agent, not necessarily the very experienced level and not necessarily the very junior level, but I think it's that middle level where you'll think about having families, think about getting onto the property ladder. And actually I think what we can do as a county more is more employers can put that focus on ensuring that actually they give the more junior candidates that break, but then give them the career path, which will actually fill the middle gap in 5, 7, 10 years' time.
Right. Can I ask you also, so you put your hand up in terms of always having a gap in recruiting. Can you explain a bit about your business and the issues you face?
Yeah, we run an independent college. It's interesting, I agree with the cost of living here. But we, over the last 2 years, have been advertising nationally for certain professions, and we provide accommodation and free living. We have 1 applicant last year and 1 applicant this year, and that's national.
And so if you were going to be really hard on yourself as well, how much of that is your issue with the way you're advertising the job? How much it is what is the job? What is the...
It's a special education needs coordinator.
But that is a fairly rare skill to find, isn't it?
Not really, not really.
I mean,
one of the problems we find, people won't leave the jobs they're in. You know, we've met with people
And what
They just don't want to move.
were you finding you had to go the extra mile to provide incentives to just get people to bring up and yeah? And what sort of how are you stepping beyond that? What else are you having to do in terms of incentives to encourage people to pick up the phone and at least be able to have an interview?
Well, the first thing we do is offer free accommodation, free living. It's then a question of increasing the salary over and above really the position in town.
And what sort of salary are we talking about for
That's
that?
between 30 and 40,000.
That's upper middle range salary. That's not a low paid job at all. So I think we can draw a slight line under all this and say that one of the issues that we could be addressing with Oxfordshire Voice and some of the ways we can message this back as we talk to more people is that there is a very clear area where there's a particular strata of recruiting people where it may be a lovely place to live but nobody can afford it.
Sorry.
Yeah.
We keep coming back. You've got your survey, the one that said about 57%, which sorry, Stuart from Wellers, we're an accounting firm. We've got offices here and in London.
Which question, Stuart?
When we were talking about the attraction of London, so your top result was 57%. So
Yeah, this one.
everybody's mentioned about affordability. We all agree that affordability is an issue, but the key point about your survey result there is actually people are going to London, which is even less affordable. There's a skills issue, a skills shortage, and there's also, I think the point that we've skipped over is about attracting things. What can we do to make Oxford more attractive so people don't want to go to London, rather than saying let's compete with London in that regard. Actually, can we be the second, third, fourth most attractive city to get employees here? And I think, with the greatest respect, and the whole debate about the affordability of housing, that's an issue that I don't think businesses such as ours can deal with. That's for the council and the planners and all the rest of the things to deal with.
Only some businesses.
Yeah. So your plan, I would agree with that. Yeah, your plan actually about improving the economic structure around Oxford. That's where we can focus our effort, I think.
So are the attractive elements of Oxford and Oxfordshire, by your definition, different to the ones in London? You shouldn't be competing with London to provide the same facilities. We should be doing other things.
We have people that train with us. I'm sure Paddy does as well. We have people that train with us and want to go to London. We're in a fortunate enough position that we've got an office in London as well. And we sometimes say that those people will go to London. By the same token, we have people that train in London, they get to middle management in London, they want to start a family, as somebody else was mentioning down here, and they will come back to Oxfordshire. I think if we could concentrate on attracting the people in the middle, the gentleman just there was talking about, that's this missing gap that we need to work on.
I think Paddy's right though. London has always been the same distance away from Oxford, and that's always been the case. So that's one of the things that drives the house pricing up. They take London wages and then come back to Oxford to buy a nice 5-bedroom house. They don't live in London, they commute to London. And I think we're talking about businesses here as well. The other thing that's not been mentioned is one of the biggest employers in the county is the Oxfordshire University Hospitals Trust. Where on earth are we going to get nurses? And in fact, any blue light services, we do need affordable houses for those sort of people. And they're a big contribution to the county, not in the business sense, but they need housing.
Simon, the lady in the pink jacket.
Yes.
That's me.
I just thought I'd add to this. We talk a lot about unaffordability of housing, but Oxford is quite a boring town, particularly at the kind of before family, before kids and things like that. There's not that much, It's true. I thought that sounds funny, but it's not.
New Year's Eve is a classic. What do you do in Oxford for New Year's Eve? There's nothing.
Go to London.
That's an important point to raise as well. It's all very well to work, and all the millennials want to work-life balance. But what is the balance?
But I think just to pull that together, one of the...
What's your name?
Yeah, sorry, you didn't give your name, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm Alan from Fritz.
Okay. It seems to me, just listening to everything that's been said, that it's not about trying to be London outside of London and attract people that way. It needs to be a different set of circumstances that attracts people to the region. So maybe, you know, what people... I'm interested you say Oxford's a boring town.
Compared to where? Boring compared to what? Well, I think
Bigger cities.
I think we've talked a lot about the draw of Birmingham and the draw of London and even the draw of Bristol. They all have quite a lot of other.
It's worth comparing it to a place of similar size.
Well, Cambridge is the obvious one. You can commute from Cambridge into London just the same.
No, Cambridge is really boring.
The other place.
Or in Southampton.
We also find that with losing.
If you wouldn't mind just giving your name and company, that would be great, Dan.
Oh, sorry, it's Daff Richardson, I'm from Pennington's. We find that with people going to London, quite often they'll stay here. They might commute maybe 2 days a week, but then will work remotely, but are pulling a London salary. And that's quite, when you're thinking about work-life balance and so on, that's quite hard to compete with.
So is that something that people see as maybe an advantage for Oxfordshire and Oxford, that as we start to spend more time working from home, we get that work-life balance a little bit differently and we don't actually have to commute to somewhere? Does that mean that there's an opportunity with Oxfordshire to be a nice place, a nice leafy place to live, most of it, and that maybe the answer is making sure that working from home is something that is more attractive to people?
Sorry, just to interject there, because John, on the front row there, you've just come from working in the city, haven't you, John? And you've left London, and that's mainly for a work-life change.
I would agree. I think what I would say is that companies also have to take responsibility to make the culture of their organisation more attractive.
Yes.
One of the issues I've commuted for the last 13 years, but I would not have stayed. Now I'm a senior person, so I can afford shots to some degree, but I was only going up to London 3 days a week, which was an okay work-life balance. But the 3 firms I worked for in London, they all would refuse for more junior people to work remotely, whereas I deliberately took the firm cloud-based to try and get more people to work from home, because that's great for retention. But I think organisations have a cultural problem. They're happy to moan about, oh, it's too costly, it's too this, it's too that. Well, actually, there's an awful lot more you can do with the technology now to allow an administrator or even a secretary or your assistant to work from home. I had one person that stayed with me. She moved out to Herne Bay, who was particularly nice. It would have been 2.5 hours to commute. So I said, well, come in once a week, or come in once a fortnight, just get the work done. The technology's there, but I don't think law firms are a good example, but they're not flexible enough necessarily with all of their staff. And the other thing we haven't really talked about is there's a big gender difference as well. When one is on the 639 from Charlesley, and I'm still having therapy about doing that myself. Obviously, ladies of a certain age, they tend to bear the brunt of childcare, and they're not necessarily doing that commuting. So I think we've got gender issues as well in terms of the workforces and who we're trying to attract. So I think companies can do a lot more to attract people if they think a bit more progressively about what people are looking for at any stage. If you're a reader of the Harvard Business Review like myself, I'm in the midlessant stage where ageing parents, children of a certain age, and at the busiest time in your job. So you need an awful lot of flexibility. I mean, the employment lawyers here are all nodding. That's the sort of thing that we can make a big difference. If Oxford becomes, it's the flexible, smart city, and we offer this, and our cultures are this, that makes a big difference. Because otherwise, with my current firm, for example, it's easy to attract somebody to come from Oxford to the city because we say, well, come in when you need to for meetings. The downside is if you're coming in 2 or 3 days a week, you still have to buy a season ticket, but hopefully you're making that kind of money. So we also have to think not so much necessarily about, well, Oxford's expensive and etc. How can we make it more attractive? as an organisation and as a cultural. Sorry.
You're absolutely right. My name's Jay. I work for Better People. I'm a recruiter, and I also have the terrible dubious pleasure of having a 27-year-old daughter who, if you have one of those, I can tell you where they will work and what they will put up with. We need to listen to what they will do. I speak to companies that are, it's like speaking out the old ages, and I look at what my daughter's doing, and there's no point was she put up with any of the nonsense that they're doing. There's nothing attractive at all.
Explain what you mean by that.
So it's archaic. So I'm working with an agency at the moment that are offering, they have flexible working, which is 4 days, but we'll pay you for 5, that have unlimited holidays. So you can take as many holidays or as few holidays as you like. They have a culture where 10%, half a day, is given to your career development, and you have time at work. And this is exactly what. No, they won't. Absolutely not. Because that's the whole point. People don't take 50 days holiday. I would, to be honest. Of course I would, because that's my culture, but they're not trying to attract me. They don't want me to go work for them. They want my daughter's age to go work for them. And she's 27. She won't afford a house if she's in Birmingham. She won't afford a house if she's in, doesn't matter where she is, it's a different world. So I think they're over-focusing on where they're living. They're going to be living with parents. Thank God my daughter doesn't. But they are, that's what they're living with. The boys, I think they're there till their 30s, God help them. But I don't get the housing. It's not about, you're absolutely right. There's so many companies I speak to, and it's so boring, and it's so samey, and they just don't think out where these people, these kids, what they want to do and how they want to be.
But those companies exist all over the country, don't they? It's not just that, it's not specifically in Oxfordshire.
I find, personally, I have recruited in different places. I find in Oxford, I find it extremely small. I find it a small mentality, very traditional, very inward-looking. Backward's the wrong word, but I find it a bit provincial, I would say, which is nice in some ways. But
is that an issue that through Oxfordshire Voice people think maybe maybe is something that should be highlighted? Is this really, as much as anything else, forget about the economics of housing, etc. This is an issue of perception of the city. Is that something I know you think it's a boring place. I haven't met a single student. I know that students different. They all think, obviously, it's great. Do you think after 3 years here they think it's boring? I'm not so sure. It's so. Just to bring it back to Oxfordshire Voice, one thing that we should be doing, we should be looking at, maybe it's one of the outcomes, is a really concerted effort to find ways of actually proving that it may not be London, and you know what, it doesn't have to be London, but Oxford and Oxfordshire needs to have a bit more vibrancy about it in other ways. You just touched it, sorry, let's go on.
So I was going to say, my name's Rosa, and I'm from a charity called Aspire Oxford. And we help and support people, earlier on one of my comments up there, in disadvantaged circumstances. And what we mean by that is people who possibly have been homeless, possibly have been in the criminal justice system, people suffering from mental health issues. We also work with young people who are not in employment, education or training. I personally work with people who are military veterans and also Syrian refugees. And somebody from Oxford will confirm, I'm not quite sure of it exactly, but there's nearly 30,000 people living in Oxfordshire already who are economically inactive and who would like to work. And they would like to access opportunities that you as employers have for your vacancies. So how can you be flexible, which I thought was really great to hear potential employers saying that, but employers have to start to look at how can they be more flexible with who they recruit and to take on.
So just to bring that in and that subject, let's go, it'd be quite nice to move on and go to the real culprits in the room according to the survey, and that's the guys who do the recruiting officially.
Simon, I just mindful of time.
Yeah.
If we can maybe before you have a go at recruitment agencies, that's what we're intending to do. Okay. Be gentle. There's a lot of them are members. Can we aim to maybe look at maybe a couple of minutes? Is that going to be long enough on this particular section? And then we start looking at the outcomes.
Yes, absolutely.
And if we can look at maybe voting on the outcomes around quarter to 6.
No, the reason I think it's worth just highlighting the recruitment agency consultancies is that was very clearly a theme of that questionnaire. Was you guys, for example, let's go back to you again, Claire. Were you surprised by the sort of negative reaction in that survey?
Not really. Obviously, it's not our job. We kind of call you guys and obviously try as much as we can to help you out. Now, I'm sure you guys know training one person for each role could range from 20 to 30,000 during training and getting all the right things put in place to get this person into the right role. Now, you guys are either not supporting enough sometimes, which we do find, and I've had quite a lot of candidates come up to me and say they've not got the right feedback from the company, they're not getting the right support, and that's why they end up either moving or going to a different role, or they're not getting noticed for what they're doing. I've had a few candidates recently that have been in the same company for 3 or 4 years and have asked for either a pay rise or something like that, and they've done their job well because we've had good feedback from them, but still the companies are kind of almost shooting to the side.
But what, because the quality of the candidate is just not good enough?
No, these candidates I've happily placed quite easily within a few weeks into a different role. I can't speak for the companies at all, but I don't believe that they're getting noticed enough, or they're not getting put in the right light from the company.
So just to tie that up before we move on, and maybe not you, another recruiter in the room perhaps, I'll ask you the question and maybe none of the recruiters can put their hand up. Do you feel that you could be doing more to not only sell the company that you're trying to recruit into, but also where it's located? Do you think how important is that as an element?
To me personally, I don't think location matters, in all honesty. It's about the company and how you sell your benefits.
But haven't we established in the last 40 minutes that location really does matter?
And this is just from my point of view. I've moved from London to Oxford. I'm not starting family. I enjoy Oxford as it is. It just depends on the individual person. I actually got given quite a good package to come here. It was for a different company, but it was because of the package that I came here and the benefits that I had with that company.
So it was your job to actually start to do what you were doing in London, in Oxfordshire?
Yes. Yeah, pretty much. So, what I was doing in London, so at the time I was actually gym manager, and I moved up to Nuffield Health down in Central, and it was a package that I couldn't say no to because of the benefits that I had with the package, life insurance and all that kind of stuff that attracted me to the role. It wasn't specific about the actual money, but it was the benefits that they could give me, which attracted me, and that's what I find the candidates that I'm speaking to now are looking for. It's not what you're offering as in salary-wise, it's progression and it's what you can actually do for them in the future.
Okay, so are there any other recruiters in the room who haven't spoken yet who can make a comment on that? Well, yes.
I'm not a recruiter. I'm Chris. I'm also from Wales.
You're also Michael Bublé's governor.
I think there's a big emphasis for employers on culture, which you mentioned earlier on. I think that's massive. I think people spend 60 to 70% of their time at work. That's a massive amount of your life at work. So your life is dominated by your work. So culture is huge in that, in terms of behaviour and in terms of inspiring people to love what they do. I think purpose is the big thing here, and that's for employers to do. But at the same time, it's for employees to recognise what works for them in that regard, and to actually answer the question, why do I get up out of bed every morning to do what I do? And until you tackle those two things, you've got a fundamental problem, and I think that's across the country and probably across most of the world, to be fair.
Even a singer?
I can't sing.
Right, so I think without doing too much of a massive summary at the end, there are clearly some real strong themes that evolve from this. Do you want to move on to...
Well, does anybody else have any really sort of burning things that they'd just like to say? Rob?
Hi everyone, Rob from Oxford. There are just a couple of other narratives which I think could probably be tapped into slightly. One is looking at how business and education can work closer together. So actually, as businesses, do we understand as education providers, do they understand what our business needs are? So actually, what are our key sectors within Oxfordshire? For example, in the South of the county with Harwell campus, is the biggest space cluster in Western Europe. I think I'm right saying that. Good, okay. Thought I'd double check. But from that perspective, actually, as education providers, are we training our young people correctly to go into those roles? So as recruiters, you need to have that pool of talent ready to go into those roles, whether that's through an apprenticeship scheme, whether it's through another form of training scheme. So I think as a county, sometimes we just need to be reflective as to what we need, and then obviously you want to also attract the correct talent to the county. It's important that we are seen as a really good place to come and work, and come and live, obviously, too. But also it's looking at what skills we have within the county. UTC Oxfordshire is a very good example of young people being trained in science and technology and then taking up roles in those particular companies, big global companies based in Oxfordshire. So I think we sometimes need to look inward as to what we need to do.
Right, thank you, Rob. So I think now is probably a good time, but I think we can use working out some of the outcomes to summarise everything we've talked about. I know we've really scratched the surface in the last hour. Would that
well,
make
no, we're
sense?
going to aim to wrap up by the end of the hour. So,
okay.
Why is this not going down? So we're going to aim at 4 realistic outcomes. So, does anybody know that they've got something that they'd like to see? Lorna will put these on the screen for us all to vote on. So, but we'll get the outcomes first. Lorna will log them, and then we'll all vote on them to see which ones should go through as our final 4. We might end up with more. But just a quick show of hands, who's got something that they'd like to say as a potential outcome or solution to some of these problems that we've been discussing?
Should you go to?
We've got one at the back there. Just as a show of hands, I don't want to necessarily come to you just yet, but so I've got an idea how many we've got. John's got 2.
4.
So 4, yeah? Okay. John, do you want to kick off?
Yeah, I suppose hello, my name's John, if anyone didn't hear that, I'm from the HR consultancy, thank you.
Do you want to say that again?
Yes, my name's John, I'm from the HR consultancy.
Thank you.
We do recruitment, and Len knows that from very recruitment. And I think it's just putting everything together that people have been saying. So John, you referring to a flexible, smart way of working. I think Oxfordshire Voice has got a real opportunity to help to take to market more what Oxfordshire has to offer for employers to tap into if they're looking to launch a campaign. But it is about the marketing of that campaign. With all due respect to the agencies in the room that do recruitment, they serve a purpose. They're not there to really sell the marketing side of why an employer is a good employer of choice. Where are we taking that audience, really going out to the market that needs to fill those posts? So I think Oxfordshire Voice could really help to bring everything together that Oxfordshire has to offer.
So again, using Oxfordshire Voice as one of the roles is for Oxfordshire Voice is as a brand to promote the region.
Yeah, and starting to change the way that we are looking, move out of that traditional, I'm sorry, the chap that looks like Michael Bublé.
It is
Only from the back.
But there's tradition everywhere in the way that people employ. But we look at the age that we live in, and as John was saying, technology and looking at the nurturing and well-being, and as the chap down there says, from a cultural perspective, how are we really looking after employees and demonstrating it's a good place to work? That will help with retention, and that will help with recruitment. It helps with the community. It really starts to put a different edge on it. So it's selling it in a much more positive way than making recruitment feel like it's an onerous task. I'm putting it out to agency and we don't fill the post, and it's a really hard thing to post. They're not, but how much time are we really investing in finding the right people? And like I said, with all due respect, and Glenn will nod when I say this, Glenn's helped me to fill posts. We work in partnership and it's seamless and it works.
but it's because we spend that time looking at actually who do we want to fill that person. Someone earlier mentioned about the right, I think it was Paddy, the right people in the right posts. How are we really investing that time to make sure we do find the right audience to attract and bring into those posts? And once we've attracted them, what are we doing to retain them? So I think Oxfordshire Voice can really help to demonstrate what Oxfordshire has to offer. Changing the mindsets of employers that it is okay with the admin, PA, whatever, as John was saying earlier, people can work more flexibly and work from home. With technology, and it all kind of, Oxfordshire Voice can stitch it all together.
So, without sounding too, you're talking really about a more, would you call it a more holistic approach to selling Oxfordshire and the role?
Forgive me if that's, Oxfordshire Voice is about the wider community and bringing everything together. So I think it is the connectivity that we can deliver together.
So like you have an estate or a new developer that will sell a new house, but use the images of Oxford, Dreaming Spires and probably Bicester Village as well to sell the area. Do recruitment agencies use that approach or in your promotional brochures? Don't want to focus on Glen all the time because there are other recruitment
We don't
agencies.
generally sell the area as it is. Our main job is to sell the business as best as we can. Our main job is obviously just to sell the business as best as we can. So that's why, obviously, working with John before, we will come to you. Obviously, we will sit down and have a great conversation, be in depth, as most in depth as possible, to get exactly what you want and need out of your business, and find out exactly what kind of person will fit into your business as well. It's not really the way that we work is in selling the area, or it's just selling you guys as best we can.
Jay, is that what you do as well?
So on my behalf, he has a medical practice, and they are very much use the whole Oxford, the dream inspired Oxford, usually loud enough. So yeah, it depends. So on a business side, he definitely buys into the whole Oxford. There's a certain academic. We go abroad lots at conferences, and people say from Oxford, they go, ooh, as if it's genuinely felt like that abroad. It's most odd, especially places, it's from India. So he uses that definitely. I don't know, and I would say I know I've spoken those, but I think it's really harsh. What happens with recruiters, in my opinion, is that we get these pretty shoddy job descriptions of working conditions that are a bit rubbish, and I always think, it's lipstick on a pig, because they can't really recruit, so they give it to us, and we can't bloody recruit for them, and then it's our fault, because these people, basically, we're not having the right environment, and all of this is great stuff, but the culture change in businesses to start offering and start listening to what our candidates want, it's not driven by money. I don't believe that for a minute. It's driven by what do